The first thing I remember was the sound of metal tearing apart and the sky turning upside down. 1 second, I was staring at the endless blue horizon from the deck of a private charter boat, pretending I wasn't afraid of deep water. The next, I was underwater, choking on salt, fighting the violent pull of waves that didn't care whether I lived or died. I thought that was how my story would end, swallowed by the ocean, my regrets heavier than the sea itself. But fate had something else in mind. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the unexpected ways life tests our hearts, take a moment right now to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Because sometimes the most powerful stories begin with disaster. I washed up on the shore at dawn, coughing and broken, my body scraped and bruised by coral and rock. For a long time, I just lay there, staring at the pale orange sky, unsure whether I was alive or caught in some strange afterlife. The island was small, wild, untouched, a stretch of sand framed by jagged cliffs and thick jungle. No buildings, no boats, no signs of rescue, just the endless ocean surrounding me like a prison wall. Then I heard her. At first, I thought it was the wind slipping through palm leaves. But then I saw her crawling from behind a cluster of rocks, drenched, trembling, but alive. Her name was Alina. She had been on the same boat, a last-minute passenger I barely noticed before everything went wrong. I remembered thinking she looked too calm for someone traveling alone. Now, that calm was gone. Fear had hollowed her eyes, but there was something else too, a stubborn fire that refused to die. We didn't speak much in the beginning. Survival leaves little room for introductions. We searched the shoreline for anything that had survived the wreck. A broken crate, pieces of wood, a half-torn life jacket. No food, no fresh water. Every wave that rolled in felt like a cruel reminder of what we had lost. The first night was the hardest. The temperature dropped quickly, and the island that looked beautiful under the sun became menacing in darkness. Strange sounds echoed from the jungle, rustling leaves, distant screeches, things moving where we couldn't see. I built a small shelter from driftwood and palm leaves, my hands shaking more from fear than exhaustion. Alina gathered dry leaves and tried to start a fire with 2 stones, her determination almost painful to watch. I had always thought of myself as strong. I worked hard, avoided emotional attachments, convinced myself that needing no one made me invincible. But sitting on that cold sand, listening to the ocean crash like a heartbeat of doom, I felt smaller than I ever had in my life. Survival stripped away pride. It exposed truth. The next days blurred together in a cycle of hunger and hope. We found a small freshwater stream hidden beyond thick vines. It felt like discovering treasure. We collected coconuts, cracked them open with rocks, and shared the sweet water inside. I cut my hand trying to climb a tree, and Alina tore a strip from her own shirt to bandage it without hesitation. She never complained, even when her feet blistered from walking barefoot across sharp stones. Storms came without warning. One evening, black clouds swallowed the sky, and the wind rose like a living creature. Rain lashed our fragile shelter, tearing pieces away as if mocking our effort. We huddled together beneath what remained, soaked and shivering. Lightning split the sky, illuminating her face, not just frightened, but vulnerable in a way that felt sacred. That night, as thunder rolled above us, she whispered the words that changed everything. She said she was just a woman, nothing extraordinary, no superhero, no warrior. And then she said I was what she wanted. It wasn't a confession filled with romance or desperation. It was raw honesty. In the middle of chaos, with death possibly waiting in the morning, she chose to say she wanted me, not for protection, not for survival, but for who I was beneath the fear. I didn't know how to respond. I had spent years avoiding commitment, convincing myself love was weakness. But on that island, stripped of everything, her words felt heavier than the storm. I realized then that survival isn't just about food and water. It's about connection. About having someone who sees you at your lowest and still chooses you. Days turned into weeks. We marked time by carving lines into a piece of driftwood. Our bodies grew leaner, stronger in strange ways. We learned which fruits were safe and which left your tongue burning. We set traps for small crabs near the rocks. I built a signal fire on the highest point of the island, feeding it every morning with fresh branches, hoping smoke would carry our existence into the sky. But hope is fragile. One afternoon, I climbed the cliff to scan the horizon, as I did every day. The ocean stretched endlessly, empty and indifferent. No ships, no planes, just silence. The weight of reality hit me harder than any wave. We might never be found. I descended slowly, unsure how to tell her. But when she saw my face, she understood. Instead of breaking down, she surprised me. She took my hand and squeezed it, her palm rough from work, her eyes steady. She said we were still alive. That was enough for now. Something shifted inside me after that. I stopped thinking about rescue as the only escape. I started thinking about building a life, even if it was on that small piece of earth surrounded by water. I expanded our shelter, reinforced it with thicker branches. I carved tools from stone. She braided palm fibers into rope. We worked as a team, our movements instinctively coordinated. There were moments of beauty that felt almost cruel. Sunsets that painted the sky in violent pink and gold. Fireflies glowing in the jungle at night like scattered stars. The way her laughter echoed across the sand when I slipped and fell into shallow water. Even in isolation, life found ways to remind us it was still worth living. But survival demands sacrifice. One morning, while searching for fruit deeper in the jungle, we heard a low growl. A wild boar, large and territorial, emerged from the bushes. It charged before we could react. I pushed Alina aside, the impact knocking the breath from my lungs as the animal's tusk grazed my thigh. Pain exploded through me. Somehow, through adrenaline and fear, we managed to scare it off by screaming and throwing stones. The wound bled heavily. Infection became our new enemy. Fever took hold of me that night. I drifted in and out of consciousness, hallucinating waves crashing over my body again. Through the haze, I felt her cool hands pressing wet cloth against my forehead. I heard her voice, steady and determined, refusing to let me surrender. She gathered herbs from the stream's edge, crushed them into a paste, and applied them to the wound. She stayed awake while I trembled, whispering that I wasn't allowed to leave her alone on that island. She had already chosen me. I didn't have permission to disappear. When the fever finally broke days later, I woke to find her asleep beside me, her hand still gripping mine as if letting go would erase me. I had never felt more loved in my entire life. From that moment, I stopped running from what I felt. The island, once a prison, became a witness to something profound. We didn't need fancy dinners or crowded cities. We needed each other. And in the rawness of survival, love felt truer than anything I had experienced in the civilized world. Then, on the 37th mark carved into the driftwood, something changed. I was tending the signal fire when I heard a distant hum. At first, I thought it was another trick of my desperate mind. But it grew louder, unmistakable. An engine. A boat. I ran to the cliff, heart pounding so violently I thought it would break my ribs. There, cutting across the horizon, was a small fishing vessel. Real. Moving. Close enough to see. I screamed until my throat burned. I threw branches into the fire, thick smoke spiraling upward. Beside me, Alina stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. Hope and fear collided in her eyes. Rescue meant survival. But it also meant leaving this strange, sacred world we had built. The boat changed direction. Minutes later felt like lifetimes as it approached the shore. Fishermen jumped out, shouting in shock at the sight of us, sunburned, thin, wild-looking. They wrapped blankets around our shoulders and handed us water that tasted like a miracle. As the island grew smaller behind us, I watched Alina. She didn't look back. She was watching me. Civilization greeted us with noise and questions and flashing lights. Families cried. Authorities documented everything. We were survivors. A miracle story. News channels wanted interviews. But in the chaos, one truth remained steady. Weeks later, sitting on a quiet beach far from cameras, I finally understood the meaning of her words. She had said she was just a woman, and I was what she wanted. She didn't need wealth or perfection. She wanted partnership, loyalty. A man who would stand beside her in storms and silence. And I wanted her. The island didn't just test our bodies. It revealed our hearts. It stripped away ego and fear and left only what was real. I learned that strength isn't about facing the world alone. It's about choosing someone and letting them choose you back. If this story has touched your heart in any way, if it made you believe again in love born from adversity, please like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel to support more stories like this. And before we end, I have one special request. Comment the word hope below if you believe that even in the darkest storms, something beautiful can rise from the wreckage. Because sometimes we have to lose everything to understand what truly matters. We were trapped on an island, surrounded by endless water, uncertain if we would live another day. But in that isolation, I found something greater than rescue. I found her.